Welcome everybody to Legacy Rips, my first video. So before we jump into it, on the 5 mistakes that I made early on, just want to say thank you for everybody that stops by, sees this video. Please share, please like, please comment. A little bit about what Legacy Rips is. It's the first step in a long journey that I hope to eventually be able to document along the way, and is to make a nonprofit to help sponsor kids that are between the 3rd and 6th grade. Because let's be honest, most kids between the 3rd grade and 6th grade don't even have an opportunity to play organized sports with school because they don't offer them. And most of the time, by the time they get into middle school and they can play sports, they're so far behind the power curve, because if they're not in private teams or paid teams or like summer leagues or anything like that, most of the time they don't get to play those sports until they get into middle school. But then they're competing against kids that have been playing for 3 or 4 years in sports that their parents pay and everything like that. And you just there's kids out there that those family can't afford that. So the purpose behind Legacy Rips is to eventually get big enough to sponsor my nonprofit, to get those kids, start a team that, hey, they don't have to pay. I'll take care of the costs. I'll buy their gear. Because you know what? Every kid deserves to play a sport. And right now, the way everything is, if I can give back and sponsor just one kid, that's a dream come true. And that's what all this comes from. But it also comes from a lot of mistakes, which leads us into the 5 mistakes that I made when I first started this venture. And first and foremost, the very first thing is buying on emotion and not having a budget. And I learned that the hard way. What got me back in, I used to collect back when I was younger. I still have some old tops, so I probably still have the box somewhere. I did find my old binder, only to find out most of the stuff in there is all junk stuff from the junk era, So I have a bunch of cards that are probably $1. Cool names though: Walter Payton, Terry Bradshaw, John Elway, all those early '90s mega stars. But none of those cards are worth anything because they're just all the junk cards. Still cool to have, but that's back before I even knew what I was buying, because I found a lot of cards like, man, I didn't even know this brand existed anymore. But still cool, still gonna keep them just because, hey, it's a cool story. But it had been many years since I've been into collecting, and my brother actually got me to go to a convention. Pokemon convention. I had some couple booster boxes I haven't spent. I bought that, were like pretty cheap. I think it was a Crimson Haze, and I had a can't even remember the name anymore. I was always big into the Japanese booster boxes. So I had Mask of Change. I even have a Shiny Treasure that I'm still holding on to. But I just took them, sold them, made a couple $100 while I was there. Seeing some, early on, was just excited to be back in there, be around, the convention, the high energy. So I bought cards, only to find out a couple months ago, and most of the cards that I bought are not even worth it. So I was spending like $250 on a total of 6 cards, only to find out I'm pretty much not gonna get my money back. So lesson learned: make sure you have a budget, make sure you stick to your budget, and don't buy an emotion, because go to the conventions. They're fun, they're exciting, but if you don't know what you're paying, you don't know what you're buying, you're most 9 out of 10 times you're gonna lose. And right now, if you could save $1 by not making that emotional purchase and wait it out, comp your cards, research, then hey, that's you're one step ahead of the curve before I was. Second mistake that I made is chasing the hype. I'm not gonna lie, I was Panini Prism hobby boxes, they're this or that, this new line came out, and I was just buying on the hype. Bought a $900 box. I thought like, mangas, yeah, I'm gonna get me a manga, not knowing the odds, not knowing the product, buying the hype, and losing, my butt off. Lesson learned. And that actually I lost. I actually lost more than I won. I think out of those, my first few boxes that I bought, I didn't really gain anything. My two big boxes that I bought was a Panini Draft hobby box because I was hunting that Archie Manning, um, and I was hunting Julian Scions. I was hunting a lot of these cards. First box, hobby box, didn't pull nothing. I mean, nothing. No big names, no nothing, and I was just disappointed. Same with the hobby box, that Prism hobby box. I mean, I pulled in no mangas, no color blast, nothing. Not even. I got a couple short prints, but from no players at all. And yeah, it was kind of heartbreaking because obviously they're not cheap. I think at the time the draft pick box was $440 for the hobby. Prism was like 900, and yeah, so right there I spent close to $1,300 and didn't get anything, and that was a big hit for me, and I was just like, man, like, and so don't chase the hype. Don't chase that. Stay within your budget. Like I said, most of my mistakes are going to roll in and back each other up. So investing, knowing what you're buying, knowing the products at the same time, not chasing the hype, not buying a brand new box just because it's out there. You see it on the top site. You see it on Instagram. Everybody's blowing it up. Everybody, stay within your budget. If you can't buy a hobby box, fine. Buy a value box. I have seen so many people hit bangers lately off of mega boxes and blaster boxes than I have seen people pull from hobby boxes. So it's really cool that they switched up everything, and you can hit some big names off these lower tier boxes because that's where the normal investor is at, and collector, and that's where most people, where I'm starting off at. I'm slowly branching into buying mega boxes and and stuff like that, which is, you're gonna get there, but stick to your budget and don't chase the hype. And that kind of led me into my third mistake, was ignoring your basics. That is, ignoring the budget, ignoring your research, ignoring the things that you set to follow, and for whatever reason, because 9 out of 10 times is not going to end well, and most of the time you're going to end up heartbroken because you're going to spend some massive amount of money because you're going to buy the hype, you're going to buy a card that you're really emotionally invested in, and then only to find out that if you're trying to flip that card and make money off that card, you're not going to get your money back. And right now, the way people comp, if you get a good person, they'll probably give you 80% of the value, unless you do private to private and you do some trades. But most of the time, you won't recoup what you lose. So make a budget before anything else. Before you go out there, buy your first box, know how much you have to spend. And even if it's $100, fine. Jump on eBay, look for cards that you like that within your budget, even if it's buying one card a week, or one card per bot, or a hobby box, or whatever your budget allows you to. Make sure you stick to it and don't dig a hole, because it's not worth it. It's this business, or your business, if you're trying to open one, or you're just a collector, or you're just beginning, you don't want the feeling to turn sour. This hobby is supposed to be fun. It's about pulling a card and just enjoying it. And so stick to your budget, and be honest with yourself, because if you don't, it's just going to give you a sour taste. And definitely don't want to see more people leave the community or the hobby because of bad choices and not sticking to their budget, chasing a hype, ignoring these mistakes that I made, because I understand some people have to learn the hard way. But if I could save anybody from making that mistake, well, then that's mission accomplished for me. And next mistake is not knowing your product. Not knowing the product is going to be the biggest one. And still not the biggest mistake that I made, but knowing your product really matters, because when you start going to conventions, if you start jumping on What's Not, if you start jumping to eBay, not knowing the product and knowing the value of those cards, not knowing how to research it, not knowing what to look for, variants, you might pass up on a good card, or you might lose out on a good card, because right now there's some cards, that most people look like a base card and they think it's a base card, but if you don't know how to look on the back to see if there's a V or there's something in there indicating, hey, this card is a variant, and you could easily pass up on a card that could be anywhere from $100 to $200, thinking it's a $1 or $2 card. So knowing the products, knowing the variations, knowing the parallels, knowing the chasers, those are the ones I would say is important to understand, because don't make the mistake that I made. Story, it's quick and easy. I had a Ben Rothenberger Prison Mania. I let it go for $320 because I didn't know the value of it. I didn't know that was a chase, a chase in that product, and next I sell it thinking like, oh, $320, my first freaking big card sale. I was excited, putting it in a mailbox, shipping it off. 4 months later down the road, when I go back, just because I was curious, I was just floored, because that card right now is going for $700-800, and I didn't even know, because I didn't do my due diligence at the time. So always research, always do your due diligence, know your product, know the sets. Every Topps, when you look at their website, most of the new product, they'll give you a list of what's in there, what you're looking for. There's also different websites, Steel City, Blowout cards. I think Dave & Adams. There's a lot of websites out there that when they're selling those product, they'll have a checklist to inform you, of those, what's in those products and stuff like that, and what the cards that you're chasing. So know what you're looking for, know what the product has, and another just tidbit: know the players and which players are worth investing in, and don't hold on to the cards that you don't need. Don't be afraid to ask questions either. If you don't know, comment. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm like I say, I'm not a guru yet, but I'm just wanting to make a video to help that next person get started and not make the mistakes that I made, which is a budget, research, know the product, and don't buy into the hype. And with my last biggest, I would say I put this to the last, because is not every card is an investment. Not every card is worth money. But if it matters to you and is worth something to you, don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. Because I have cards that are junk cards, but I just think they look awesome because they're my team. I have the Arizona Diamondbacks. I have, the Dallas Cowboys. I have, the Spurs and Thunder. Hockey, I mean, most people probably think I'm weird because I follow hockey, but mine were always been the Red Wings. Don't ask me why. I just always liked them as a kid. Still, I can't tell you any of the players, but if hockey was on and I seen that team, I'll follow them. But it's just my teams that I like, and I follow them, and to me, those cards are valuable. But doesn't mean that it's valuable to everybody else. So don't get mad or don't get upset if you put a card thinking that, hey, to you that card is worth $100, but literally that card's only worth $2. It really just comes down to it's an investment to you, but not necessarily for everybody else. So don't get offended if people say something about a card because you may think it's worth $1 million, but it's really not. But that's where researching, knowing the product, knowing the players, knowing the sports, not buying the hype, all matters, because you then will be able to make better decisions and not buy and make the same mistakes that I did. Because as of right now, I gave you 3 mistakes, and those 3 mistakes already cost me over $1,500. And those $1,500 could have bought me so much more had I known what I know now. And that right there, if I was to start today all over again with what I know, first thing first, I would set a budget. How much can I afford? You know, and if I have $800, so for a quick second, if you have $500, my thing is put some of that money aside and just keep putting that to the side and create what I call a grading fund. Because when you grade cards, especially with how it is, you have to wait to get that money back, but you don't want though. You want to have two, and that's what I do it. And I hope, works for me. I'm not trying to give financial advice, but I just tell you what works for me is that I have one savings, and that saving is for grading only, and I have another saving which is my working funds. That means that's what I can go out there and buy, signature boxes for Tops, because I love that product right now. So sorry, Signatures, I don't know why, it's an amazing product to me. Same way with Cosmic. If I can get my hands on a Cosmic box, trust me, I'm spending like $40-50 just for that blaster or something like that, just because I like those two products. But everybody's different. But if I have a card that I want to that I pull, for instance, I already know what I'm going to do. I just pulled a freaking Bow Mix Galactic Auto. Once I get that card, I'm going to pull at least $200 out of my grading fund, and I'm going to send that card to get graded. Why? Because that's $1,100 card, and I'm going to easily be able to get that money back. Knock on wood that I get a 10, but then that's what the purpose of that grading fund is that it doesn't mess with your capital, but you know that you can recoup those funds down the road, and it separates your working capital, and at least you know that if you ever get a decent card that's going to be able to make you some money, that at least you can dip into your grading fund and it doesn't affect anything else, and you don't have to wait for that waiting game. You don't have to sell off like 4 or 5 cards to make up for what you spent, because it's separate. And that's the only thing that I could tell somebody new, is to have those two different separations, just because it does make a big difference. And especially right now with PSA and all these grading upping their pricing, having that little change on the side and not affecting your actual workable capital when you're dealing with your little startup business and stuff like that, I think will go a long way, and I think it will make a difference. And you won't feel so backed into a corner when you do get a decent card. So that brings me to my last little bit, is looking back. I don't regret getting back into it, because it's been such a awesome experience, meeting new people. I'll just tell you right now, I have a few people that I follow. Like there's Break House, there's Veteran Sports Cards, there's the Dirty Sailor, there's Next Gen Cards. I always shout them out, because out of the hundreds and hundreds of people that I sent messages to when I first started out asking for help, not one person gave me a response except for those 4 individuals, and they were so helpful that made me want to create this YouTube channel to be able to give back and be that next voice for the next person, because I was actually at the point of giving up and walking away from it all, but I didn't, because I met them at the right place, and I'm always going to give them a shout out because of what they've helped me accomplish, so don't be afraid to ask. And like I said, and if you do ever find somebody that's willing to help you out, man, ask them. Don't be afraid, because I didn't. And you can even reach out to me, comment, send me a message, ask me whatever, and if I have the word for it, hey, I'll give you whatever I've learned, the processes that I've learned, what has helped me. And like I said, this is a community, and it all comes from a good place, because the more people that I can help, the better for me, the better for my long-term goal, and the closer I can get to helping sponsor a kid. So stay tuned for that, because that's going to be a monumental moment for me, the day that I can make that video and be like, I sponsored my first kid. Because that's to me, and when I mean sponsor, not the, here's your uniform. Like, no, I mean uniform, glove, cleats, bag, bat, depending on the sport, everything. Also being able to pay for their fees, or hey, I'm gonna go on a trip. We qualify for state. I need when I mean sponsor, I mean the whole 9 yards, and making sure that that kid can experience that moment and be a part of a team. Because between third grade and sixth grade, that is when the most kids, and I'll be honest, are the most impressionable. That's when they need those friendship, develop those bonds, because some of those kids, will go through their whole school year with them. And if we can get them into sports and do something positive with everything negative going on in the world, if I can give one little piece of positivity to a kid and hopes, then all these mistakes, everything was worth it, because it got me to where I needed to be. And that was the whole purpose of this, is being where my feet are and helping that kid, but also having fun, also being a part of the community, and also giving back to the community that's helped me along the way. So until my next video, hopefully y'all having fun, hopefully y'all have a next break, and never make an excuse onto why you can't start. So until then, have a good one.